You are listening to Cards Subject to Change, brought to you by the For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network. Subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on your favorite podcast platforms for the newest episodes of Educated Ignorance, The Data Lab, Cards Subject to Change, and other great podcast content. Hello and welcome back to Card Subject to Change. I am your co-host, the Wizard CZ. With me, my tag team partner, the Honorable Nick Bull. Nick Bull, my friend, what's causing all this?
Greetings, salutations, and boy, if you're looking for something fun to watch, we have got something for you this week. Fun, used loosely. I like to think of this podcast is like, kind of a hobby, a way to have fun, but it was kind of a chore this week. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, it definitely was. I'll be honest with you. I watched this dumpster fire more than once in the last couple of weeks. I've watched it at least twice. It's kind of been a hobby of mine. Let's just set the stage here. We are at the downfall of WCW, and this pay-per-view could arguably be what would be the catalyst to the complete and utter failure of WCW. We are in the heart of the Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff regime. We have a world champion who is not qualified to be a world champion. We will talk about that in great detail because there's a lot of stuff going on with said world champion. Overall, Nick, what did you think of the show?
I'm going to tell you what. Like, I sit here and say it was a chore. I say that tongue in cheek. This show ends like a bucket of crap. But there are some bright spots on this show that I found as a wrestling fan enjoyable. I watched it twice. There were some things on this show that I like. When they happen, I'm like, yeah, this is great. I like this. There were some moments. For the most part, it is a rolling dumpster fire of Vince Russo hot-shotting at its finest.
Absolutely it is. And oh my, are we in for a roller coaster of a ride. We get the start of the show, which has highlights from the previous Wednesday's Thunder, which we're talking about two factions at this time. We're talking about the New Breed or the New Blood. I think it's the New Blood.
Yeah, it's the New Blood.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And the Millionaires Club. Obviously, the Millionaires Club is who you'd think it is. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, etc. and so on. The New Breed, you've got people like Shane Douglas. You've got, oh my God, I just blanked on his name.
Guys on the card were Sean Stasiak, Scott Steiner was New Blood. Yes. I'm trying to take a look here.
Billy Kidman.
Chris Canyon was Millionaires Club, I believe. Mike Awesome was New Blood. Luger, Millionaires Club. Buff Bagwell, New Blood. So yeah, the proverbial line in the sand has been drawn. It is going to happen here, and it does at Slamboree 2000. 10 matches on the card, all but one feature matchups between New Blood and Millionaires Club. You hear that repeatedly throughout the match. Couple side notes Chris talking about, or CZ was talking about, introducing Millionaires Club and New Blood. Slamboree took place on May 7th of 2000, just to give you a little retrospective here. It was in Kansas City, Missouri, at the Kemper Arena. I believe that's the same arena that Owen Hart passed away in, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're correct.
Crowd for the show, 7,165. We have on broadcast Tony Schiavone, Scott Hudson, Mark Madsen, and we have backstage, of course, Okerlund and Mike Tenay. Let me tell you this, before we even get into one single match here, CZ, this show is best enjoyed on mute. The fact that Tony Schiavone was the rose between two crap thorns in Scott Hudson and Mark Madsen. Scott Hudson wants to be Larry Zbyszko so bad, the over-the-top heel, and he's nobody. And Madsen is trying too hard. I feel bad for those guys. I feel even worse for Schiavone having to work with them. I got to a point where I had to put it on mute. I couldn't take those guys anymore.
I totally understand. Schiavone is the best of the group, and we are definitely outside of WCW's heyday. You know, the NWO, as watered down as it became, they're not here. There is no big NWO faction any longer. You have no Bobby the Brain Heenan sitting at the desk, no Larry Zbyszko. Mike Tenay pops in backstage every once in a while, if even that. So really, you've got your, other than Tony Schiavone, you've got your B team of No, I'm sorry. You have your C team of commentators for WCW. We're already off to a rough start.
Hey, there's a ton of people in New Blood and a ton of people in the Millionaires Club. I couldn't even sit here and name all of them, but man, they really struggled for on-air talent. And I feel bad, but I have a lot of feeling that Vince Russo was friends with a lot of these guys and gave them jobs. And I have to believe that's part of the case. And Schiavone's like, well, my check's getting cashed. I'll keep putting these guys. It takes away from the pay-per-view for me. And honestly, after the first watch into the second watch, I muted it and just enjoyed it that way.
I do not blame you a bit. I wish I had thought to do that, because Mark Madden in particular is just awful.
I'm sorry. I was saying Madsen, so I apologize for the name being wrong. My bad.
No, I mean, it's probably an improvement on his character as a whole, in all honesty. No, the commentary team, you got Mark Madden trying his hardest to be Bobby Heenan, and he is very much not. You've got what's the other guy's name? Doc Hudson? No, Scott Hudson. Sorry.
Yes.
Trying desperately to be the living legend Larry Zbyszko. Those are the shoes they're trying to fill anyway, and they just dumpster fire is the only word I can put those two in as commentators.
Oh, for sure. It was. And I'm taking these notes. I'm like, man, these guys' voices annoy me. This is going to be a heck of a night. And they get right into the action after the video packages leading up to it and showing the feuds. And they kick it off with a good match. It's the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. Your champion, Chris Candido, with Tammy Lynn Fish. You know them better as, if you're a WWE fan, as Skip and Sonny, the Body Donnas. Mm-hmm. He is the champion here, and I notice I write everything down, stuff that sticks out to me. Candido comes out with a cruiserweight belt that I'm not familiar with. That's not the classic-looking cruiserweight belt in WCW. So I had that kind of brought some attention. I'm like, that looks different. I'll have to do some more digging on that, but that's the first thing that caught my eye.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's a different-looking cruiserweight belt than what we're used to. His opponent, I die laughing. I forgot about this gimmick. Completely forgot about this gimmick. And it works. It's the artist formerly known as Prince Iakea. This is Prince Iakea's newest gimmick, the artist, a runoff of Prince. And to Prince Iakea's credit, I think he does a great job in playing the Prince character. He's got Paisley as his valet. And I got on here, entrance has strip club vibes.
Yes, 100%. And you mentioned the first thing you noticed was the cruiserweight belt. The first thing that I noticed is that Prince Ikea, yes, I know that's not his name, but Paisley, who he came out with, nod to her future self, is Queen Charmel, Booker T's wife.
That's correct.
For those of you who did not know. Yes.
So Queen Charmel worked for a prince before she, worked for a king. So, and then that happens here with Prince Iakea. And this is not a disrespect to anybody in the industry. but I go Prince. Prince or the artist looks like a food service worker with his ring outfit. I have worked in the food service industry as a banquet server in the past. He has on the black dress pants, the white button-down shirt. It's supposed to be kind of a paisley shirt like Prince would wear. But, man, it's got to be hard wrestling in dress pants and a dress shirt. But Prince Iakea looks like a food service worker on his breakout back. Just got done with a cigarette. He's going to kick some ass and then go back in and finish his step.
Absolutely. I agree. Oh, my. And this match was – this was an interesting match, you know. A lot of the other thing that I noticed off the bat before we go into the match itself, they've got the long entrance ramp, which this time in WCW is really rare. I mean, we're starting to move away from the elongated, the stretched entrance ramp.
You are. They're saying this is like a first. This is a first in Slamboree history. I got to thinking that's how it used to be for all the Clash of the Champions. And I always associated that raised ramp with WCW. So, yeah, that was kind of a good thing to see. I did see that they noted that. I remember them noting that.
And I'm going to talk about that ramp a couple times because I'm a fan of certain famous people's podcasts, like Eric Bischoff, Bruce Pritchard. There's a story behind that ramp and a couple of moments this night with it being played out, one of which we'll get to at the end. But I'll give you a little tease from what I heard when I listened to one of either Tony Schiavone or Eric Bischoff talking about this show when I first listened to their podcast a while back. Overall, you know, the match wasn't bad. You've got some shenanigans with Tammy in a chair, and Paisley and Prince Iakea. Here's the thing that struck me about the match, though, was the end. Because I don't know if it was miscommunication on the referee's part or what, but the match ended, restarted, and ended again with the same person winning both times.
Yeah, a little snafu there. I don't know what was going on. I had on here, this match is a good opener, and outside of Tammy Lynn Sitch screaming every time Chris Candido took a bump, that got really annoying real fast. I said this match is a good opener, but it's very, very sloppy. And the sloppiness, I believe, was on the part of the artist. Several times Candido had to scoot to make the spot or to make it look somewhat believable. It's just, I thought he was very sloppy in this match. And I thought it lingered, and you saw that towards the end. I think maybe that's kind of why you had the ending the way it was. I was going crazy. I don't know, maybe did they give away free beer? Because this match was good. I think they're just excited. It's a Slamboree 2000, right? It's one of their big events. Yeah. It was a good back and forth. We end with a flying headbutt, and Chris Candido, the champ, retains at just under 8 minutes, 7 minutes and 59 seconds. I'm a big fan of Candido. I've watched some stuff of his in ECW. I think one of his best ECW matches, he has a match against Sabu, and it's not what you think. It's more of a wrestling match, and I think it's one of Sabu's better matches because he's doing his Sabu stuff, but there's more wrestling in it than just the high spots of Sabu. So that's another place, another time. But I always look forward to when Chris Candido pulls up on the card and we get to review one of his matches.
And for sure, he's the veteran in here. You've got Prince Iakea, or the artist, I'm sorry, as he's known at this time. You know, still an up-and-coming star. He hasn't been around for very long, so really Candido had to carry this match and make the artist look good, and I think he did a good job of that. But like you said, it was very sloppy, especially at the end.
Hey, it was sloppy at the end, but if you like sloppy, there's plenty of that on that show, or on this show's TV, and that's a great segue into our next match. Match number 2 is for the WCW Hardcore Championship. Only match on the card that did not have Millionaire Club and New Blood storylines involved. We have your current champ, Terry Funk, against Norman Smiley and a mystery opponent. And my first note I took was completely forgot about hardcore Funk in WCW. Completely forgot about it.
I did too.
Completely forgot about it. I see Funk walking with a belt. I think it's a pretty decent looking belt for WCW hardcore belt. I actually, my eyes were drawn to it. I think, oh, that's pretty cool. I totally forgot about this. But man, I love how he shows up backstage. Funker is. And he's like, hey, get your possum playing ass out here. And I love how he talks. I love how he talks to those people. He walks up and the people are like, pointing to where Smiley is and get your possum playing ass out here. I just loved it. And then the fight starts in the men's room, right? That's where most fights start.
Well, yeah, of course. And you've got Norman with his mystery partner, who Terry Funk finds in the stall as the mystery partner, and Norman comes in and just hits him immediately, sprays the fire extinguisher right onto Funk.
And how many times did you hear? I'm not trying to jump on you, but how many times did you hear in this match? 55, middle-aged and crazy. How many times did you hear that this match? I think about 13.
Yeah, I had that in my notes. Oh my God, and it was all from, in my recollection, it was all from one commentator saying that. It was Mark Madden. Middle-aged and crazy, middle-aged and crazy.
Oh, I know. And this is a hardcore match. If you want to say hardcore, it's backstage at WCW. But man, they really took it to a whole new level. I put, you guys destroy Mean Gene's set. Norman Smiley got thrown into some metal girders, and then down went Mean Gene's set. So I thought that was a pretty fun moment. And
yeah.
This is where it started for me, okay? When Funk has Norman Smiley pinned, the mystery partner's just standing there, not trying to break it up.
Yeah, the mystery partner was the worst partner you could ever have.
We'll get to the reveal, but
he's following them around like a lost puppy.
Near fall. Yeah, Funk near fall. Mystery partner looks on. And it happens again. Oh, my God.
And there was a part that I have in my notes where Norman Smiley is down in the backstage area. Mystery partner comes in with a trash can and starts hitting Funk on the head with the weakest hits I have ever seen in my life. It's like just a little love tap with the trash can, thinking he's going to take out Terry Funk.
When you find out the mystery partner, you're going to realize it's not the best worker, and this is how you get your comedy into the wrestling too. And my goodness, it doesn't stop. So outside of two near falls where the mystery partner looks on, we have Funk now take the mystery partner, and he is ushering him up the long aisleway back to the ring. We have been backstage this whole time up until this point for this match. I put on here, the mystery partner reveal is sickening. Sickening in the fact, as the mystery partner's coming out, his shirt is up around his face. We don't know who the mystery partner is. We're about halfway to the ring. Okay? The first thing I'm thinking of is that thing a hernia, or is it the alien from Total Recall that comes out of the guy's stomach?
Oh, it was so bad. And
it gets better. This is the worst part, and I should have put the time code on there for our listeners and for you to go back and watch. I'll let you say who it is. But as the mystery partner is getting thrown into the ring, his hernia got stuck on the top rope.
Oh, yes, it did.
And I about wet myself from disbelief, laughter. I had to rewind it a couple times. I'm like, I had to make sure. Yeah, the hernia, the appendage, the alien, whatever it is sticking out of the mystery partner's belly, got stuck on the top rope.
And because of that, it caused, and we did not thankfully get a view of this. The camera did not cut to where we could see this at this time, at this point anyway. But because of that getting stuck on the top rope, you've got Terry Funk with a handful of tights. His pants come off almost completely. So his naked ass is hanging out on the other side of the ropes from what we can see. And I'm sure the fans got a real treat on that who were on that side of the ring.
I mean, that hernia it like moves. It was really disturbing, and that's all I could think about after that. After the hernia gets stuck on the top rope, I'll let you reveal who it is.
Oh, man. It is none other than the Jericho Protection Society, for lack of better, I don't remember the exact terminology when Jericho brought him in. Truck driver who turned into a heavy for Chris Jericho as part of his security detail during the Goldberg storyline that Jericho was trying to portray. None other than world-famous WCW talent Ralphus. Oh.
Yes.
And
Ralphus and his appendage.
If you don't remember Ralphus and you're up for some of the most ridiculous shit you've ever seen, go back and watch some WCW with Ralphus, because he's got the cutoff shirts when he's with Jericho. He's got this ridiculousness with Terry Funk and Norman Smiley. He's all over the place. And for all intents and purposes, this guy should never have been on TV. This is a truck driver who the only reason he got on TV.
Listen. If he's not on TV, I don't get a third of the laughs from this pay-per-view.
Okay,
because
that's fair.
It starts backstage. I mean, he looks like a Teletubby. He's dressed like Catcher in a Major League Baseball uniform. Norman Smiley is dressed as a baseball player, so that's the thing. And he's slow. And Ralphus is a little slow, both physically and developmentally. I think we all know that. But, yeah, he's the security. He's the mystery partner. After the reveal, after he comes into the ring, I have a quote from Tony Schiavone that says, "Oh my God, what a match!" I'm gonna give Tony the benefit of the doubt here and say that had to be in jest. Well, what I'm going to tell you this is, I don't have a lot more on this, but a couple notes. The match doesn't last longer. Thank God for all those involved and for those that had to watch it. I put here, Ralphus sells like a pro. He took a crappy chair shot from Funk and just dropped like a fly. And I put on here, I've never been happier in my life to see a roll-up for the win of a match.
Oh, my. That was this match true. Right here.
So the roll-up at the end is timely. It's perfect. It ends at 10:53. It's under 11 minutes. There are tons of laughs in there. And this may be my favorite, if not, it's my second favorite match on the card for that. You got to go back and watch the Total Recall alien coming out of Ralphus's stomach and it getting stuck on the ring rope.
And here's what I have in my notes that I loved about that. You've got Norman, who his big thing is the big wiggle, but Ralphus insists on doing his own wiggle with... Go back and watch this. You want something that's entertaining, that's going to get you some laughs.
He gets behind Terry Funk and gives him the business.
The worst big wiggle in the business. Thank you very much, Ralphus. Go back and watch this match if you want to just have some serious fun, because it's very comedic. It's very well put together, and for no other reason than that, you've also got a legend of the business, a hardcore legend of the business in Terry Funk, carrying this match to its extinction, to its conclusion.
Oh, for sure. Norman Smiley and Terry Funk are two great workers, but having Ralphus in this makes the show. And don't forget, Ralphus did a lot more besides the Jericho thing, and this match proves it. We have got to pay some bills here, don't we, CZ?
We do. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to toss things over to Joe the Show Winkle, who's going to give our bookers some love here. So we'll be right back.
Make sure you tune into For Frequency's Sake on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch each Sunday during the football season from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. The boys from For Fantasy's Sake will be bringing the fire fantasy football takes, updating you on the week's rankings and injuries, and getting you ready for your fantasy football matchups each and every week. The show is interactive, so be sure to send your questions. You can find them at For Frequency's Sake on Facebook, at FFSQC on Twitter, or you can send them an email at forfantasysakeqc@gmail.com.
Thank you very much to friend of the show, Joe the Show Winkle. You can find him on the Educated Ignorance podcast on the For Frequency's Sake podcast network, anywhere you can find your podcasts. Nick, coming back to Slamboree 2000, after we see the big wiggle and the bigger wiggle, we go backstage to Mean Gene talking with and I can't believe I ever have to say this line in any time frame, the world heavyweight champion, David Arquette.
Yeah, at the time, there was a lot going on. Obviously, WCW was struggling, and they were trying to do all that they could to keep themselves relevant. David Arquette filmed a movie called Ready to Rumble, and that's how the two worlds kind of cross over, and it parlayed into a world heavyweight title reign for David Arquette. Arquette's talking backstage. He's ready for tonight, but he's scared. He's being honest, and he's about as ready as he'll ever be for the match.
Yeah, and all in all, it was a good interview. You got to keep in mind here that during this time in WCW, this was when the AOL Time Warner company had purchased the business from Ted Turner. So the tie-in there is you've got the movie tie-in because of the partnership with AOL Time Warner. That is where a lot of this stems from. They're kind of pushing the movie to be a part of WCW because, let's face facts, the movie is a WCW movie for all intents and purposes. I'll be honest, I've got a lot of love for Ready to Rumble. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching. Just as a one-time go, it's very entertaining. As a wrestling fan and as a comedic fan, what do you think, Nick? I'm not sure if have you watched Ready to Rumble? What are your thoughts on the movie?
Oh God, years ago. I remember. I can't sit here and give you a scene by scene breakdown, but for what it is, it's not bad. I mean, we're looking at 2000. It's a wrestling movie starring David Arquette, and you've got WCW wrestlers on screen. So they were trying to get their guys out there, be seen. You know, the Monday Night Wars are over, and they're trying to still show everybody they're relevant. And what better way in a major motion picture? So, no, it's not bad. Would I go back and watch it 4 or 5 times? No, but it's worth a watch. And I know you're going to pick on David Arquette later, and I'm going to be on the opposite side of that. I'm going to defend David Arquette here later on. But I'm telling you, if we don't, we got to keep these matches going. We might be here all night talking about this stinker of a show. I mean, and listen, this is where it gets stinky, in my opinion. You got like a 2-match run here, in my opinion, and where it got stinky and it started to lose me. Match number 3, we've got the perfect one: Sean Stasiak versus Kurt Hennig, who everybody knows for his WWE gimmick as Mr. Perfect.
Yep.
Did you notice that Sean Stasiak got Perfect's music on this pay-per-view?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
and that's something he got a lot of things from Mr. Perfect on this pay-per-view. He's got his music. He's got essentially his WWE gimmick, WWF gimmick, and not to spoil the end of the match, but he's got his finisher also.
Yeah, we're not spoiling anything here. There's no spoiling here. This pay-per-view's been out for 22 years.
That's fair.
But you're right. This match, it could have been a minute or two shorter, but it goes just shy of 8 minutes at 7:54. I put Stasiak gets perfect music. Give me a break. And then they started losing me. Hey, they scrapped Stasiak and Henning right away and just started shoving the new blood and the Millionaires Club down our throats. Russo and Bischoff, blah 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 blah. So they're doing that, and hey, there's a match going on too. And then hey, there's the Misfits in action, MIA at ringside. I completely forgot these guys were even a faction. I knew who all the guys were in it, but at this point, who the hell cares? Who the hell cares if the Misfits are at ringside? I don't give a crap. And then I wrote on here again, Scott Hudson is ruining the show for me. He's trying so hard to be Larry Zbyszko. I go, Stasiak hits the perfect flex. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
And I'm going to call out one thing in this match. I mentioned I was going to bring up something about the entrance ramp. So at the end of the show, there is a spot that we'll talk about when we get there with this entrance ramp. The reason they have the long ramp going to the ring. So there's a part of it that's gimmicked. I'm not this, like you said, it's a 20-year-old show. Shouldn't ruin anything for you. We'll talk more about that gimmicked part of the entrance ramp at the end of the ring. But what I want to talk about, Mr. Perfect, the consummate ribber that he is, takes a shot at Eric Bischoff by throwing Stasiak onto the portion of the ramp that's been gimmicked for later on. He doesn't actually do it, but he's trying to be hilarious and get under Bischoff's skin by picking Stasiak up and teasing that he's going to throw him and ruin the end of the spot at the end of the night.
You know what? If he would have done that, it might have saved the show.
You might be right.
He might have saved the show. It's a back and forth match. The old guy against the young up-and-comer. Stasiak gets the win clean. And did we see – is it Chuck Palumbo that comes out after this match? Because I thought Palumbo and Stasiak become a team. I know Palumbo came out later and maybe celebrated or something with them. This show has definitely got some stuff on it, but that's not memorable. Match 4, okay, it goes off the rails here.
Oh God! So
I want to know how much monkey hormones were going through Scott Steiner's veins. He looks absolutely uninterested in this match. He looks more interested in talking smack to the ringside fan.
Yeah.
He's got 2 beautiful women with him who are like trying to get him to the ring and trying to not get him to go after the fan. After watching Scott Steiner in this state, and this is pre-chest tattoo Scott Steiner, in case you're wondering, you Scott Steiner fans out there. I can't believe he's still alive. My God, that guy's hard. He's got to blow through his chest at one point. He has taken so many performance enhancers, but man, he throws Hugh Morris around. Excuse me,
yeah,
Captain Hugh G. Rection. What the hell, dude? This is like a juvenile joke, even in 2000.
You start this match with Hugh Morris coming out and saying, my name is stupid. It's a name that was given to me by Eric Bischoff. I'm going to call myself by my real name, which does not make me sound stupid at all. You can call me Hugh G. Rection. Come on, man. What the hell?
Captain Rection for short.
Yeah.
and by the way, he's the leader of the Misfits. In case you gave a crap about that. Interesting note: Captain Huge G. Rection comes out to Mike Awesome's music in ECW. which
Wow.
we see Mike Awesome. We see Mike Awesome in the next segment, but yeah, huge G erection comes out to Mike Awesome's music. I said Steiner's more impressed, talking to the fans, posing for the women. He's raging here. He is raging, Scott Steiner. I know it seems I'm glossing over this, but the real burnable, crappable moment in this match is when Captain Rex, and I can't believe I'm calling him Captain Rex. Captain Rex does the moonsault off the ropes, misses, and kicks Steiner in the head.
Oof.
The moonsault misses. Steiner rolls out of the way, but he gets hit, clocked square across the forehead. He sells it for a second, hops up, gets pissed, and sinks in the Steiner recliner. I would be pissed too if Captain Huge G Erection missed the spot and landed it across my face.
I think anybody would.
As if Scott Steiner wasn't already easily agitated, he puts the Steiner recliner in and wins at 9:24. The best part of this match, besides it ending, was the fact that Booker T comes down to a huge pop in clean towels. So we get to see Booker T on this sinking ship.
And it's too bad he didn't have a match because, like you were saying, whether it was tongue-in-cheek or not about possibly saving the show by throwing Stasiak through the gimmicked part of the ramp, Booker T, with even one match on this show, could have saved this card.
Yeah, very well could have, but I'm sure in the infinite wisdom that's Vince Russo, he probably didn't have anything for him. I mean, how could you not have anything for Booker T? Regardless, love that guy. I'm glad he was able to have a career in WWE after the ship sunk there in Turnerland. But yeah, it was good to see him. Booker T looks great. You forget how freaking cut he looked and how much younger he looked, but he looks really good here when he shows up and beats down the bad guys.
Yeah. Very nice to see him. Very good spot. Just completely cleans house and takes out Scott Steiner. Probably the highlight of that whole match for me, Booker T coming out at the end after it's over.
Oh, of course.
So
I didn't have any other notes other than Booker T looked great and that the match ended.
And that's where my notes end too. From there we go to the Mike Awesome match, and let me ask you, Nick, who better than Canyon?
Mike Awesome.
Pretty much anybody.
I know. Say it again. I ruined your gimmick. I'm sorry.
Who better than
Nobody
Canyon?
Better than Canyon. And watching these shows, and proverbially we're taking a crap on this one and having fun with it. I loved this match. I love both these guys as workers. It's sad to know they're both no longer with us. But Mike Awesome, go back and look him up in ECW. He was fabulous. He was fantastic. Now I know they did that 70s guy, Mike Awesome. And this is the Mike Awesome the world needs. Was this incarnation, and I'm a self-professed awesome Mark. So I was looking forward to this match going in. I totally forgotten that this feud had happened. And the most impressive thing about Mike Awesome, I wish he was still around today. He missed out on a generation because the big guy can work and the big guy can fly.
Here's what I have noted.
He makes it look believable.
He has the size of a heavyweight with the agility of a cruiserweight. I think one of the commentators said that, but it fits. It very well fits because Mike Awesome's in-ring ability, his capabilities as a wrestler are very, very put together. He's a very put together wrestler, very underrated, probably should have been bigger than he was, and it's sad that he's no longer with us.
It said he's no longer with us, but I'm going to tell you, like, we're sitting here talking like he can fly. He's not doing stupid flipping moves that are unnecessary. He's doing he's going over the top rope in a press. He's coming off the top rope with an elbow drop. They're smart big man moves that work. And man, I have on here in all caps, this is a full-fledged Haas fight. These two were just kicking the crap out of each other.
They really were.
They were. I could go back and watch this match again. It only goes for 12 minutes, 11 seconds. It ends in a no contest. But what better way to end a Haas fight in no contest than introduce another Haas to it, right?
Yeah, big sexy Kevin Nash, the Giant Killer himself, comes out and just cleans house for a while. And what I have noted here, this leads to the mid-card brawl. So every other than Kevin Nash, every mid-carder in the building comes out and brawls here.
Hey, all the guys that we don't have anything for, this is where you come out. Right?
Exactly. You want to get on the pay-per-view, then you're gonna go fight at the end of the Mike Awesome match, where everybody's gonna get on TV if you don't have a match.
I'm telling you what, when we're done crapping on this show, that's the first match I'm going to go back and watch again on the show. I love Mike Awesome. We will get down on Mike Awesome rabbit hole in 2023. I promise you that. We're going to have some new stuff for you coming in 2023, and we're going to go deeper into some of these guys that weren't around long, had some matches. We'll highlight some of their matches and talk more about them. But Mike Awesome here, it's a good version of him, but his best stuff is ECW and the late, great Chris Kanyon. I mean, hey, remember when he was the MVP of the Invasion?
I do.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was a part of the Invasion. So he's here in 2000. He stuck around and was able to become, make a name for himself in the Invasion angle. So, yeah, it wasn't too bad. I like this match. I like both guys. And having Kevin Nash come out and everybody take out the new blood was cool.
Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine.
So we roll from
big guys. You're fine. You're fine.
We roll from this Haas fight into the story behind this match is you wouldn't be able to get away with this today, because this is all about Vince Russo owning Miss Elizabeth, Liz, and Luger is going to try and get her back by fighting Buff Bagwell.
In putting her in precarious situations, yeah. This stuff wouldn't fly today. It doesn't age well. Sad to know that Liz is no longer with us. Sad to know that Luger's just a former shell of himself, but he's in better condition mentally. Buff Bagwell here, he looks great, but man, he's been hanging out with Steiner. It looks like,
Yep.
Monkey hormones raging through him.
Weren't they a tag team at one point? Steiner and Bagwell?
I think they were at one point, yeah. I think they were in the NWO. They palled around together. But I put on here, this match makes me sad. That's what I have on here. It makes me sad. Luger doesn't look like he normally did before.
No.
And it really dates me when he had the tearaway pants and the tearaway shirt. Oh, my God. Nothing screams 2000. Nothing screams 2000 like the tearaway pants that you lounge around in your house, right?
Right. And this is where you mentioned Chuck Palumbo earlier. This is where Palumbo comes out.
That's right. I'm sorry. I got confused.
Here's the thing. You've got Sean Stasiak earlier in the night imitating Mr. Perfect. Well, Chuck Palumbo comes out and he's wearing Lex Luger's gimmick, Lex Luger's trunks. He gives Lex Luger the torture rack. So you've got, I don't know if this is imitation is the best form of flattery or what's going on, but two wrestlers who will eventually form a tag team.
I believe Palumbo was under the tutelage of Luger at this point, and it was the student turning on the teacher.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. That's what I believe that's what happened when they had the magic thing, and that was him turning on him.
And of course, shout out to
match
Chuck
goes,
Palumbo and his later career as Billy Gunn's partner, Chuck and Billy.
Chuck and Billy for sure, and I believe Palumbo also had. Was it Sean O'Hare and Chuck Palumbo that were WCW champions during that whole invasion?
Yes. I
think
want
they
to
fought the
say
Brothers
that's.
of Destruction. I mean, for
Yes.
some reason we got on this invasion thing. I think we were talking about Canyon. I mean, but yeah, that's I know Chuck Palumbo ends up with Sean O'Hare before he ended up with Billy Gunn in WWE. But yeah, Chuck Palumbo, that's the guy that got out of wrestling, got smart, got out of it before it got him, right?
Yeah. Probably the best thing he ever did, especially coming from the time that he came from.
So Luger wins the match 9.5 minutes, and we roll into our next match, one of the featured matches of the show. I believe this is the first time these two have ever fought, or at least that I can recollect. I'm sure they have. Somebody will call in and tell me. I'm not saying I'm the know-all, end-all. Just off the top of my head, we have the franchise, Shane Douglas, against the leader or the mouthpiece of the Millionaires Club, Ric Flair. And there's a stipulation to this match. If Shane Douglas beats Flair, Russo gets 5 minutes with Flair. Is that correct?
I believe actually it's if Russo interferes.
If Russo interferes, that's right. Then Flair would have 5 minutes with Russo after the match. I didn't know what to think of Flair here. This is May 2000. We're about a year away from WCW getting sold, and you've heard now about Flair was really struggling with his confidence and stuff at that point. Flair's wrestling in dress slacks and a dress shirt, a short sleeve shirt. That's the first thing I kind of thought of. I said, where is Ric Flair mentally here?
That's the first thing I have in my notes also. Because
no, seriously, I mean, great minds think alike, I guess. But where is Ric Flair mentally?
You've got to think that at this time he was at the start of his downward spiral and his lack of confidence as we're getting towards the end of WCW, and he's getting ready to show up in WWE. Because when he first showed up in WWE, that was a continuing thing for him mentally. He's not the Ric Flair of old. It took Triple H and starting Evolution to build that confidence back up for Flair.
Yeah, for sure. He didn't have the spot on the card in this Millionaires Club New Blood thing he did. He takes on Shane Douglas here, but that was the biggest thing for me in this match. And maybe I was thinking about that too much. I didn't take a lot of notes. I enjoyed the match. One thing they did right with this show, and we can crap on it now, we can crap on the card, but the match lengths aren't that bad.
No.
They keep things moving. It's what a pay-per-view should be, 3 hours or under. And they do a good job of that. So I'm gonna compliment them on that for that. And we've sat here and crapped on them all over this, but they kept this match moving. But I was just kind of sad for Flair. God, I'm getting all sappy and emotional here. But no, I just put, where was he at mentally in this match? Shane Douglas, usually a pretty good worker. So the two could probably have a good match. It probably could have been better if Flair was more invested, but you can't blame him at this point, right?
Right. And here's what I have.
What did you think about the match?
Honestly, I thought the match was as good as it could be.
Considering, yes.
All things considered, I mean, probably handpicked by Rick himself. You have Charles Robinson, aka Little Nate, as the referee for the match. I like the spot at the beginning where Flair turns to Robinson and says, "Hey, the ref holds the ropes for the world champ."
That's right.
That I thought was a nice touch.
Oh, absolutely. I like that. I like that too.
And at the end of the match, a Russo, air quotes, comes in. He's wearing a Sting mask. He interferes in the match to give Flair his 5 minutes with Vince Russo. only we find out that it's not Vince Russo that is under the Sting mask. And when the big reveal is after being after being hit with a bat, we find out that this is actually Ric Flair's kid, David Flair, who turned on his dad, turned on his father.
Yep, big storyline got set up here. David Flair had been with WCW off and on for a year and a half, 2 years. Excuse me there. I was burping there. Excuse me. I'm trying to think back. I don't know the year off the top of my head, CZ, but I got sad when I saw this too. I'm like, wow. There's David Flair, who probably had the best in the business with the greatest wrestler of all time, and man, his demons caught up to him. You wonder if he could have, ever, done his own thing. Sure, Charlotte went out and did hers, but women's wrestling, it was easier for her to do that in. He would probably always be compared to his dad. But, I was sad about Ric Flair, where he was mentally in this match, and then the David Flair thing. I was happy to see him, and also made me sad. But the way they brought him in with the Sting mask was great.
Absolutely. And I want to take a moment here. We haven't mentioned it until now. The thing with this card, with the regime of Bischoff and Russo, we've seen a lot of shenanigans and a lot of interference and craziness throughout the show. There are a lot of lax rules in the ring, and the commentators talk about it throughout the card, throughout the entire show. It's not your standard. It's not your standard pay-per-view where there are match rules like countouts and disqualifications, because you don't see a lot of them, but you do see a lot of chaos and interference all throughout the show.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hitting with foreign objects. You do that more than once, it takes away from it. Save that for when you need it. And so just repetitive booking, lazy booking, whatever you want to call it, it's starting to come out here, right?
Yeah.
And that's the downfall of Vince Russo booking. It can get lazy at times. It gives you that big boom crash moment, but it also gets lazy, and you're getting that here.
100%. And it just shows, and that's honestly one of the reasons why WCW, after losing the Monday Night Wars, they went down the toilet, because it was lazy booking by Vince Russo. And I'm not trying to shit on Vince Russo. I don't want to crap on the man. The guy did a phenomenal job during the Attitude Era, but he also had Vince McMahon to say, wait a minute, that's a little too much.
Yes, when he had someone to rein him in, it was controllable. But when he had no one looking over his shoulder, going carte blanche, it just wasn't going to end well. And we have that here. And the New Blood's fingerprints are all over this pay-per-view. And we see that David Flair is now the new member of the New Blood. So Vince Russo now has one up on Flair. Not only is the New Blood, win this match, and Shane Douglas wins this match, but Flair's son has also turned on him. So now it's gotten personal.
That old wrestling trope. Now it's gotten personal. Well, Nick, we've got 3 more matches to talk about, but we do have to take another quick break and pay some more bills. So I'm going to toss things back over to our good friend of the show, Mr. Joey Winky, who's going to talk about the websites for frequency's sake.
In addition to bringing fire on the mic, the team at For Frequency's Sake is still bringing it online as well. Check out ForFantasySakeQC.com this season for college DFS, Survivor League, and betting advice each and every week of this football season. Again, that is ForFantasySakeQC.com for college DFS, Survivor League, and betting advice each week during the football season.
Thank you, Mr. Winkle. We appreciate your contribution to the show. Again, you can find him over on the Educated Ignorance podcast on the For Frequency's Sake podcast network.
And we are very thankful for those folks for having the platform, the opportunity, the ring, if you will, the card, if you will, to come here and talk about wrestling. And we pick up where we left off. And by the way, you got fantasy. If you need fantasy advice last second for injuries, NFL injury reports are a nightmare. Listen to these guys on Sunday morning. They will get you squared away. And you know what? If your question doesn't get answered, I bet somebody else is probably asking that same question. So tune in for other questions. You might get your question answered by someone else, and then be on your way. But if you don't listen and your fantasy football team sucks, I don't want to hear it. Take your complaint somewhere else, and I'm sure Deej would say the same thing.
I think you are correct. DJ would definitely say the same thing. He's one of the 3 guys who takes fantasy football by the reins and gives you everything you need to know every Sunday from 10 to 11:30. So coming back to Slamboree, we have our favorite longevity performer. It's Sting facing off against Sting Jr.
Sting Jr. It's Sting versus Evil Sting with the paint. But we have got to find out, or I'm going to find out after the show is done recording, when the first ever it's Sting, when that was. I've got to find out, because I want to go back and watch it and just be able to live it in. But I remember when he came with the first time in AEW and heard it, it was just like, oh, it's taking me back to being 15, 16 again, man. It was goosebump moment. But, we have Sting versus Evil Sting, or the artist known as Vampiro. I don't know a lot about Vampiro. By the time he had gotten to WCW, it was during this time. And I'm glad you picked Slamboree 2000, because I really didn't remember watching this pay-per-view. I had seen the main event for obvious reasons, but I'm not familiar really with Vampiro's work. I know he was a commentator and a performer for Lucha Underground.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that had 4 seasons. He was on that. He wrestled for a time in WCW. But when I saw the card for this show, this was probably the third match I was looking forward to. I like seeing Sting, younger, obviously, 22 years ago, and Vampiro. And for 2 guys you think that would go longer, obviously you see why it didn't with the match after it in the main event. I could watch these 2 in a feud over a longer period of time. I'm not sure how much they feuded after this, because I didn't watch the show after this, but
it was a long-standing feud from what I remember. They really. I seem to remember a graveyard match at one point. I don't remember if he was part of this or not, but the Kiss Demon, I believe David Torberg is his name, partnered with Vampiro at one point. I'm saying real things here, people. These things really happened. But listen, no, there was some longevity to this feud.
Pause. There are things you hear throughout the day that you don't expect to hear when you get out of bed. I did not think there would be a Demon Slayer Kiss reference tonight. But damn it, you went out and got it done. Congratulations.
I am here to help. I am here to surprise you with all sorts of craziness. Speaking of surprising you with all sorts of craziness, one thing that I have in my notes for this match, the build up to the match had a lot of red is what I'm going to say. And I'm saying red because that is all the commentary team could say. Let's face facts. If you're watching it, there was a lot of blood dropped from the ceiling, dropped on wrestlers, but because of standards and practices of AOL Time Warner and therefore WCW, the commentary team was not allowed to use the word blood. So they could only use the word red.
Could you imagine today if that was still the same rule? I mean, it just shows you how much things have changed over time. I caught that too, and I'm like, what a pain in the ass for these guys. They're grown-ass adults commenting on men in tights in underwear, and they can't say blood. I mean, I don't know what they did during movies at that time. Did they edit out blood? I don't know with Time Warner at the time, but yeah, that was kind of a pain in the butt to get around. And, second time through, I just muted it, so it didn't bother me too much.
The match itself, like you said, they could have gone longer. These two could definitely go in the ring. This was during Sting, maybe not Sting's heyday, maybe not his full prime, but shortly after, as he's in the twilight of his WCW career. And obviously, he's had a lot more longevity since WCW being in TNA, WWE for a short period of time, and now AEW. But this was definitely in a portion of Sting's decline as we're at the same time as WCW's decline for this era of Sting.
Yeah. The better days of Sting have passed. As WCW, he went down the ship. He was in the main event on the last show with Ric Flair, so he was there until the very end. And I think that's why a lot of people can commend Sting. I love going back and watching this old Sting stuff, and I'll come out and profess I wasn't the biggest Sting fan growing up, but man, I have the biggest appreciation in the world for him now, and I'm so glad that he is still active. I'm so glad I got to see him all out perform. I'd never seen him perform before, or wrestle before, and it's a legend. Anytime you can see a legend compete in their sport, their thing, it's awesome. Anytime you can go see a band that's legendary that won't tour much anymore, it's great. And if I don't want to bring AEW into this, but the way that AEW has booked Sting has been great. I hope that they continue this way, or if they phase him out, whatever. But man, they've booked him great, and he still has that aura of him of being Sting.
And the fact that he can still go at his age is a testament to his longevity in this business.
Yeah, he's a guy that kind of did things his way. I was doing a little reading on him, then another place, another time, but he stayed in WCW. He could have went to WWE after he kind of wanted to, but he loved the schedule. He didn't miss any of his kids' stuff growing up, because where he lived and just the schedule. So props to him, and I'm glad. I mean, he's still around. He's still doing it, and he looks good. As someone who survived the rough and tough wrestling lifestyle and came out, good on the other side.
100%. And the fact that he did eventually get to the WWE, I thought that was fantastic. I really wish, fantasy booking had on. As far as Sting goes, I really wish we could have seen him versus The Undertaker. I know that's on almost everybody's fantasy booking list of what if matches.
For sure.
Definitely on mine. Towards the top of mine, but Sting is just an all-around great performer, and this pay-per-view was not one of his best matches. It's nobody's best match, though, when you look at the card overall. And the match ended with a lead pipe, a lead pipe, and a Scorpion Death Drop.
Relaxed rules, right?
Yeah. I don't know how I feel. So let me ask you this, Nick. How can a company go from being thrown over the top rope resulting in a disqualification to now in 2000, utter chaos and nobody gives a crap? Do whatever the hell you want. The refs aren't going to bother to disqualify anybody.
You got Eric Bischoff, and you add a little Vince Russo to that, and that's what you get. Chaos, right? Eric Bischoff always said controversy creates cash, but no. They had to swing for the fences here. See, hindsight's always 20/20, but they had to. They had to swing for the fences here because they were getting their asses kicked on the other side.
That is very true. And it's unfortunate because I think if they had gone a different direction than Vince Russo, they may have been able to survive. They may not have ever been to the point where they were beating WWE anymore, But I think they could have survived a lot longer had Russo not come in and done this ridiculous booking that really was salt in the wound of WCW as they went down.
It was, but I cannot blame WCW for booking Vince Russo, having seen the successes that he had over at their competitor WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, hey, he was the hot free agent. He came from them. Man, he's going to come help us immediately. So I see the mindset there, but it just did not work.
No, it didn't, and I agree. I mean, if I were running WCW at that time, seeing what Vince Russo did to turn around WWF's product, I would have done the same thing. I can't say I wouldn't have made the same move. But like we said earlier, Vince Russo is one of those guys who needs to have someone keeping him in check.
He does.
And he just didn't have that.
No, and aren't you glad that you've got someone to keep you in check? You're kind of that I got to keep you in check, right?
Absolutely.
And vice versa.
Look at our podcast last week. I said a word that I probably shouldn't have, and I'm not going to repeat it, but it was in reference to a wrestler. And right away, you're like, whoa, what'd you do there?
No, that's all right. Hey, we're here to keep we're a system of checks and balances, right?
Exactly. And I love every second of it.
Well, I could opine for Sting and not appreciating him, but now I do appreciate him, and we're going to leave Sting and Vampiro in the dust here as we are going to come to the conclusion here. 2 more matches to talk about on this show. Match number 9 features. Is it Hulk Hogan or is it Terry Bollea? They kept referring to him as Terry Bollea, like, "Oh yeah, you're cool, Scott Hudson. You're cool, Madden. We know that's his real name. Okay, we know that, but I don't know if that was. I'm guessing that was part of the New Blood Millionaires Club angle. And I had a note circled here, but man, I really thought a lot of people were pissed watching this show. I see FUNB signs all over the place. I'm like, Jiminy Christmas! I haven't even hated on this show yet, but the FU New Blood, I got a kick out of that, and that's what's on the back of Hogan's shirt. Hogan is taking on Kidman, who I was always a fan of, whether he was with Raven's Flock or whether he was on his own. I was even a bigger fan of Torrie Wilson, and Torrie looks great here, by the way. And of course, hey, Uncle Eric, Eazy-E, is your referee for this match.
So this is going to get out of hand because Eazy-E, Eric Bischoff, he is one of the leaders of the New Blood. Hulk Hogan, of course, being one of the prime champions of the Millionaires Club, arguably one of the leaders. Him and Ric Flair, I'd say, were the top 2 guys as far as star power goes overall. Sure. I mean, you can make an argument here. This is a sidebar of Hogan and Flair being the 2 biggest names in the business almost ever, at least up until this point.
Oh, for sure. Hulk Hogan brought us through the time. Hulk Hogan took the WWF from Bob Backlund and then mainstreamed it. Of course, with a lot of help. Hulk Hogan being in Rocky III and the rock and wrestling thing going on. And all sorts of things, getting the proper, run when they did. All these things go into it, and Hulk Hogan is synonymous with one. I'm sure we'll talk about it someday, but the Mount Rushmore of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And
yeah,
whether he could do a drop toe hold and get out of that and do a single leg crossface, who cares? That guy at WrestleMania 3 cemented his legacy and ushered in a whole new group of people that became wrestling fans.
And then to turn around and within less than a decade to become the biggest heel in the business and revitalize WCW in the same way he did WWF But on the other side of the coin, the man has to be in your top 10 list for people to be on that Mount Rushmore wrestling. If he's not even in a contention on your list, then you need to check your pulse because there's something wrong with you, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure, for sure. In this match, you always kind of wonder, man, Hogan, a couple years younger against Kidman, what might have been? Their styles make fights, and these are different styles. Obviously, an older Hogan here, but always enjoyed Kidman's work. This match was fine. It wasn't. Yeah, there's going to be hijinks, but it wasn't as bad as one would think it would be.
No. Here's the thing. The commentators talked about Kidman getting a couple wins over Hogan before this. Do you think that the initial plan was for Kidman to get the win here, and Hogan pulled the "that's not gonna work for me, brother" card out of his repertoire, or do you think that Hogan actually was supposed to go over in this match?
It's hard to say. Hogan was still getting paid at this point, which was probably why the ship was sinking. He's still getting paid that big money. So yeah. I forget what. Listen, I am not really familiar with the storylines after this pay-per-view, so I don't know what happened with Hogan and Kidman after it. But he might have pulled the veto card, and Bischoff might have, gone along with it, brother. But yeah, I would have liked to see Kidman go over here too, but I don't know what happens afterwards, so I really can't comment.
I wish I could. I did not take the time to look up what happened afterwards. Just I'll be honest, my time has been limited the last couple of weeks, so I was happy to get this show watched twice like I did and get some good notes, but I haven't had time to really research what happened after. So it's a good question, and we'll have to put a pin in that because you got to wonder anytime that Hogan goes over with a younger talent, you have to ask yourself, is it Hogan putting them over, which I know he did. You got to look at Goldberg. That was Hogan's choice to drop the belt to Goldberg when he did. But at the same time, he does have that creative control card that he can pull whenever he pleases.
Right. Well, brother, when you've gone through what he has gone through and done what he has done, yeah, you've earned that. And I don't know. I don't know what the plans were. I mean, that's what's great about this. We can revisit and go down any rabbit hole or any parallel universe in the wrestling world that we want to. That's the best part about this. But for sure, Hogan, I'm sure, making him being Kidman relevant in a feud was probably a big enough rub for Kidman. And so I don't see the problem. I don't see the problem with it. I would have liked to have seen it too, but obviously it didn't happen.
Right. And, that leads us right into our main event, Nick. And I'm just going to come out and say,
hold on. Let me preface this, folks. This main event is CZ's baby. I cannot wait for his take on this. I'm just looking forward to it. I'm sorry. You can go ahead and do your thing now, but I cannot. I know you've been looking forward to this.
So, the thing that I love about any WCW main event on any WCW pay-per-view, you've got Michael Buffer, big-time boxing and ring announcer, coming in. Let's get ready to rumble.
And you knew you were going to have that with the movie, right?
Yeah, because the movie is called Ready to Rumble.
Sure.
And for those of you who have not seen the movie, it's been out for 20 years. I apologize. I'm going to spoil it for you. The movie ends with the main character, not the main side character, the main wrestling character. David Arquette gets involved in his character as well, but the main wrestling character is involved in a triple tier cage match. So what WCW did was they brought what they called the Ready to Rumble cage onto one of their pay-per-views. Now, it was handled a little differently than the movie did, and here's how. So the triple tiered cage, they had different match types set to the cage, I guess is the best. Different gimmicks. So the first cage, just a normal wrestling ring surrounded by essentially a WWF Hell in a Cell. I think that was the inspiration for the bottom cage was Hell in a Cell because you had the top on the cage. It wasn't attached to the ring posts and the apron. It was out by the barricades. Next tier up, you have the hardcore cage. And this hardcore cage has every weapon imaginable. And if you're paying attention and you're looking closely, there's even a kitchen sink hanging from the cage.
Is there is there a Terry Funk in that cage?
There should be, but there's not.
There should have been, because Terry Funk's a weapon and he's a hardcore champ. Dude, that would have made this match so much better. Just to book Terry Funk in that cage, and anybody who comes in that door just gets their ass kicked.
I think that would have improved the match and the show vastly, but of course you had the great Terry Funk in that earlier hardcore match with Ridiculousness and Ralphus and Norman Smiley. We've talked about that. The top of the cage, the third tier of the cage, is the guitar cage. And why on earth would you need a guitar cage? Well, because one of your competitors is JEFF. JARRETT Jeff Jarrett. And
and you better be careful what words come out of your mouth next, slapnuts.
Spend my days working hard on the oh wait, I'm sorry, that's the wrong Jeff Jarrett.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't resist getting that in there, but at least at this iteration of Jeff Jarrett, he's gotten rid of the weird stripy shirt. He's just wearing trunks now. He's got his hair buzzed, coming out with the sunglasses, calling people slap nuts, and hitting people with guitars, a la the Honky Tonk Man. So this is a completely different iteration of Jeff Jarrett. You've got Diamond Dallas Page, and you've got the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, David Arquette. And David Arquette wants nothing to do with this match, as he says throughout the night. We'll see just how that's going to play out in a few moments. So, David Arquette, I want to mention first. Coming out, what did you think of his ring gear, Nick?
That's the first note I have. The first note I have is, could Seth Rollins pull this off?
I think he could.
I think he could too, because if I had, I guess I forgot how ludicrous his ring gear was and his outfit. But yeah, if we hadn't seen Seth Rollins the last few years, I would have been put off by it. But I'm like, I think Seth Rollins could do it.
I would love for him to actually give a nod to this so that we can have the side-by-side meme of who wore it better.
Oh, totally. I totally agree. But yeah, I kid you not. That's the first note I had written down.
And that's right where so that's actually the second note that I had. The first note, of course, I've already talked about, and that is Michael Buffer. Let's get ready to rumble. Always love him. Always love him introing a match. I think it's very classic. It has a big fight feel for it, even if that match is not a big fight feel.
You couldn't have said it better, CZ. You know, I was a Raw fan growing up, but I always loved how Nitro replayed right after it, so you could catch it. And Buffer adds the big fight feel. There's a buzz in the air when he's in there, and whether or not the main event of Nitro or said pay-per-view, be it Slamboree 2000 here, delivered or not, Bruce Buffer gave it that feel. Excuse me, Michael Buffer. His brother Bruce does the UFC.
Yeah, Michael Buffer is one of the best ring announcers in the business ever because of that big fight feel that he brought to anything he touched. Even if it's something as ridiculous as a triple-tiered Ready to Rumble cage match. So,
you know what?
I mean, let's get into it.
Yeah, I've seen worse gimmicks in wrestling. This isn't the worst gimmick match I've ever seen.
And
But
I'll be honest,
it does set a standard.
It does. And I'll be honest, this is not the worst triple-tiered cage match that WCW has ever put on. We'll put a pin in that, Nick, because I think you and I need to talk about that show at some point down the road, but probably closer to an anniversary of that show. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I got an idea for sure. I do.
Okay. We're just going to leave it at that and no spoilers because we'll talk about that another time, which I'm anxious to do. But
that's for another place and another time.
Exactly. Spend my day. Stop it. So let's get into it.
Close the door.
So the way this is structured, you start in the bottom cage, you work your way to the hardcore cage. You technically are supposed to work your way to the guitar cage, but let's face it, as they reference multiple times, the 30 pounds of gold is hanging above the guitar cage. So if you were any kind of smart, you would just bypass that third cage because you got to go outside to get up to it and just climb up and grab the damn belt. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but then what are you going to do for the rest of the match?
Well, that's fair.
You know what? I'm going to give them some credit here. This match, the booking into it, the idea, it's there, but it's still crap. But I'm going to tell you what, they cut this crap off at the right time. This match ends just shy of 15 and a half minutes at 15:29. At least this thing didn't go out 40 minutes.
Yeah. That I think that would have been completely unbearable. So you've got my notes on this here. You've got Paige and Jarrett do most of the fighting. Jarrett does chase David Arquette around the bottom ring for a little bit, a couple times. Paige makes his way up into the second cage. At one point, the cage wall falls down when both Paige and Jarrett crash into it. So that tells you how safe this cage is right there.
Yeah, this thing is an OSHA an OSHA dream come true.
But the big high point of the match comes. You've got all three. David Arquette makes his way up top. DDP and Jarrett exchange guitar shots because there's at least 4 guitars in that upper cage. David Arquette gets handed a guitar by DDP at one point, only for David Arquette to come back and smack DDP with the guitar. Jeff Jarrett follows up with his own guitar shot, and that's the swerve, bro, of the whole night, because it's not a Vince Russo unless there's a swerve.
What about Mike Awesome? How did Mike Awesome magically appear out of nowhere?
I have no idea.
No, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. Does Mike Awesome have the powers of levitation? Because he shows up out, like, off camera at the door, at the steps of the guitar cage. So I'm like, where the hell did he just soar in there? But yeah, Mike Awesome makes an appearance in this. Man, he got double booked. He got a little extra pay in his envelope.
And after the match, Canyon makes an appearance as well, and him and Mike Awesome are fighting while Jarrett and David Arquette are celebrating up at the top.
Of course.
And this is the spot that I was talking about. Mike Awesome throws Canyon off of the cage into the gimmicked part of the ramp.
You knew earlier when these two were having their Haas fight, it just ended too soon, and there wasn't any ending to their little story. I'm glad it was part of this match. I'm going to be honest with you. This match is essentially a one-on-one match. You can't do much with Arquette, and that's fine. They booked themselves in a corner when they gave him the belt in the first place, but that's neither here nor there. What we do have here is WCW trying to right that wrong
Yep.
two quality workers in the match, get the belt off Arquette in a gimmicky way that's going to make us money, and have them go out and watch it. Yeah, it's crap, and we've crapped all over it. But man, at least it's not. It's crap, but it's not the stinkiest crap.
No, there is far worse that we could talk about, and probably will down the line. We've got some longevity here on our shows, where I'm sure we're going to talk about things that are worse than this in our garbage wrestling discussions.
But I do.
But
it is garbage, dude. It is absolute garbage, and I love it.
and for no other reason than the fact that this whole show was garbage, with few exceptions, go back and watch it and be entertained by the garbage. Be entertained by the ridiculous of Slamboree 2000. I know I was.
Oh my goodness, I was so entertained. I really was. Like, I had, I knew about this match. I knew about the ending. I knew about this or that. But man, like we talked about, man, I totally forgot about Terry Funk in WCW. I totally forgot about Terry Funk as the hardcore champion. We got Mike Awesome and Chris Canyon. Dude, we get Jeff Jarrett just going nuts up on the stage on top of the cage with quite possibly the best championship belt of all time. Oh man, I love that big gold belt. But
that is the most beautiful belt there is.
They got it off Arquette to Jarrett, and then man, Mike Awesome is now going to beat the crap out of DDP. Yeah, it's hey, if you're looking for 5-star matches, you're not going to get them on this show. But if a lot of times when I'm doing stuff out here in the studio cleaning up, I'll put a pay-per-view on and have it running and stuff. That's what I do. This is a good show to put that on. Throw on Slamboree 2000 if you're having a bad day and realize, hey, this crap made it. I'll make it. So use it as a credo. If Slamboree 2000 made it, I can make it. All kidding aside, this really is an entertaining show. And yeah, it's ugly, it's crappy, but it's entertaining, and you won't be disappointed, I promise you.
No, and go into it knowing that it's crappy, and just enjoy the ride. It's a roller coaster from the start. You've got some really good spots, you've got some fun, entertaining spots, but just go and enjoy the ride. I recommend, if you haven't watched it in 20 years, it's worth popping on Peacock and giving it a watch. Take a couple hours. Hell, take a couple of days. Watch it in pieces, but just enjoy the show for what it is.
Seriously, with that being said, make sure after viewing this, you take a shower, and make sure you also wash your hands after viewing this, because it does get gross and dirty in parts. No, I'm kidding. The matches do get gross at times with some of the booking, and just the fact you see Vince Russo so much makes you definitely want to take a bath after watching this show.
Yeah, I agree. But at the end of the day, worth sitting and taking a look at. Especially if you've enjoyed me and Nick talking about it, because this was a lot of fun. And, I'll be honest, I'm looking at the clock. We've gone a little bit longer than I thought we would, maybe a lot longer, but that's okay, because this was a fun show to talk about because of the ridiculousness.
This flew by. I can't wait to revisit another show like this. I love watching these. I love watching these shows and finding the good and the bad. And there's good in this for sure. But if you like bad, this is your show too.
So let's put a pin in or put a bow on Slamboree 2000, and let's talk about what we got coming up.
Let's talk about it.
Next week, we're going to give some more love to WCW. Believe I mentioned this on last week's podcast. I love September in WCW. It's Fall Brawl. Fall Brawl means War Games. So we're going to look at 97. The only thing I'm going to say, if you look at the card itself, it's a pretty well-rounded card. You're going to look at the main event and you're going to say, oh, well, that's the B team or even the C team of the NWO. but with good reason. We'll talk about that next week. And then we're gonna do the big reveal tonight. We've got a couple of big things planned for the following 2 weeks. I'm gonna announce one of them tonight. But let me start by this, Nick. Last Saturday you went to the SCW Pro Show in Walcott, Iowa. Tell us about the show. What did you think of it?
Oh man, it was my first show back since post-COVID. I had been to the Walcott Coliseum before for a show or two. I love the venue. I was joking with my friend. I go, this is like the MSG for SCW Pro. It's not the biggest venue, but it's kind of got the intimate feel. Sit as close as you want. It was a good card. Hey, in and out of there in 2 hours for $10, guys. You can't beat it. They're not paying us anything, but kind of wanted to preface it because next week we're going to kind of break format a little bit, and we will have an interview for our listeners. It'll be the first interview here on Card Subject to Change. I'll let CZ make that announcement. But, dude, I think SCW Pro they run shows every other weekend or something. So there's plenty of opportunity to see them. Check out their social media. It's all at SCW Pro. But, yeah, go ahead and talk about our guest. We just have an interview next week, so you won't hear us burning Slamboree 2000. Instead, we will be talking to a pretty known name in the area.
Yeah, I am super excited for 2 weeks from now because we get to sit down with the head coach of the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, the booker, the owner, or the promoter of SCW Pro, Mr. Merrick Brave. I've known Merrick for probably about 10, 15 years now. He's a 20-year ring veteran, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all about not only the Black and Brave, his role there, but just his views on wrestling and how he got into the business, how some of his favorite moments and matches in his career and just throughout. I'm anxious to talk to him. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, we're going to see. I think we're going to see a different side of him. We're going to obviously talk about the wrestling, his background, currently what he's doing, but interested to see what he does, how he got into wrestling as a fan. You know, what keeps him going as a fan, and what he enjoys watching.
And I've come across some tidbits that I'm anxious to ask him about. I'm not going to spoil anything now. Just that I'll leave that teaser. There's a couple of big things that he could have been involved in that I'm anxious to ask him about. So we'll leave that there. Nick, do we want to talk about the other interview that we're doing the week after Merrick Brave?
Well, just expect an interview the following week as well. Breaking format again, but that's okay. We'll announce the name, I think, next week. But the next two podcasts will be interesting. They're going to be different, back-to-back interviews. So next week's show, we'll have that interview with Merrick Brave. And then our first show.
2 weeks from now is Merrick Brave.
Fall Brawl 97 is next week. 2 weeks is Merrick Brave. And in third week, we'll have another interview, and we'll announce that after the Fall Brawl 97 review.
I like it. So that's going to wrap things up for us today. It has been fantastic and a lot of fun talking about everything Slamboree 2000. Like I said, we're going to give the rub to WCW again next week with Fall Brawl 97. You have been listening to Cards Subject to Change on the For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network. Find me on Twitter at TheWizardCZ. Nick, my tag team partner, is at NickBull55. You can find the show at CSTC Podcast on Twitter and also on Cards Subject to Change Podcast on Facebook. Thank you all for joining us here. We will see you next week. Nick, take us out.
Happy birthday, CZ. Tomorrow's his birthday. Make sure everybody reaches out to him. Bye-bye. It's been a blast. See you next week.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.